Friday night under the lights at Memorial Stadium, Indiana football is back. The Hoosiers look to keep their unbeaten start alive as they face the in-state challenge of the Indiana State Sycamores. Two teams enter undefeated, but only one will leave with momentum intact. It's about execution, it's about discipline, and it's about proving who's ready when the lights shine brightest. The Hoosier Tailgate starts now.
And picked off up the sideline. Indiana, Asbury, walking them down. Woo! IU, America, they got a football team now.
Welcome back to another edition of a Hoosier Football Tailgate here on thehoosier.com. I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith, and welcome to each and every one of you that are joining us tonight, whether it be via YouTube or on one of the social media sites such as X or Facebook. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to join us here at the Hoosier Tailgate. Just a couple housekeeping items. Remember, if you want a list of affiliates that the Hoosier Tailgate is associated with, check my bio page on X. There's a Linktree bio that will have all those affiliate links for you. One of the primary ones is with Fanatics that will have all of your Indiana gear for you to deck yourself out for the next home game, which is tomorrow evening, 6:30 kickoff in Memorial Stadium against the Indiana State Sycamores. But if you do purchase one of those items from an affiliate list, we do get a kickback, and we will always wrap that and roll that back up into the show. So we appreciate you if you decide to do that, and you can get all that there on the bio page. And I also have an affiliates landing page on HoosierTailgate.com, and that also will give you a list and links to the different features of those affiliate agreements that we have, and we appreciate them for joining the tailgate and allowing us to provide opportunities for you, the viewing audience, to purchase something if you so desire. But enough of that. Let's get back on track here tonight as the Hoosiers get ready to entertain the Indiana State Sycamores and welcome Kurt Mallory, a head football coach at Indiana State, back home, as Bloomington is a home for Kurt through the years, with his father, Bill Mallory, being the head coach at Indiana for a very good number of years. But Kurt will bring the Sycamores in. They're coming in hot, 2-0, with two big wins to start their years off, to start with against McKendree and then Eastern Illinois. So they're off to a flying start, 2-0, averaging about 40 points a game and holding their opponents to under 19 a game. We'll talk more about Indiana State here as we go on tonight. And again, once again, and Bradley, I appreciate coming and joining us this evening. And just as Bradley has put something into the chat box, if you have a question about anything specifically Indiana related or college football related, by all means, put it in the chat. We'll get to it as much as we can. I'll try to answer as many questions as I can as we go through tonight. As we break down this game. And it's an interesting tale that we're here 24 hours out. Usually I'm doing this 2 days out prior to a kick against an opponent, but because this is a Friday night game, I kept things the same this week. And let's do this. This is our pregame. This is our pregame scouting report for all of you that are heading into Bloomington tomorrow night for that kickoff at 6:30. I, unfortunately, am involved with high school football in Northeast Indiana, and I cover the Summit Athletic Conference, the Northeast 8, and ACAC for 1380 The Fan here in Fort Wayne. And I do color commentary and also have a pregame show there, as I will be involved with that. So unable to really enjoy the Hoosiers as much as I would like to watch that game. I will probably sneak it on up in the press box as I'm doing the color commentary on our game of the week tomorrow night. But plan on having the post-game show with Jim Coyle. I will probably not make that, but check your Twitter feeds for the time and start of that post-game show tomorrow after the game there at Indiana State. Usually try to go 30 minutes after the press conference is all said and done, and that's usually between 30 and 45 minutes after the final whistle blows. So check with your social media so you don't miss that. And again, I appreciate you all coming in and being a part of this tonight, as well as there's also some college football on tonight. The NFL's Thursday night kicks off tonight. So there's a lot of football going on here in the next 3 days, which is great. And us football fans just love it. But wanted to take a few moments here to talk a little bit about a couple things that are happening in the college football world. Then we're going to jump into Indiana State here in a quick minute. But right now, the portal update, the NCAA rules committee, I guess you could call them, has suggested that a portal be once a year and open in January, somewhere around the 7th, I believe, which just happens to be in the middle of the college football playoffs. Once again, logic does not seem to enter the minds of these individuals making these rules and these decisions, because that would create an unfair landscape for those that are still involved in the college football playoffs, trying to manage their rosters and get ready for a game. This happened at Penn State last year with their backup quarterback, who's now at Missouri. He actually had to enter the portal, leave Penn State to go to Missouri while Penn State was in the midst of the college football playoffs. That just doesn't seem right. And so my suggestion is, for what it's worth, that the portal opens the day after the final game of the college football season, after that championship game, the 24 hours right after that, and continues for 30 days. And once that 30 days is up, the window closes, and that would be the only availability for kids to transfer via the portal for that year. No more spring window and things of that nature. So it does create an environment where there's just one window. That's it. It runs from 30 days after the final whistle of the championship game, and it allows all teams to equally work on their roster for the next year. And for those players that are wanting to leave, can put their names into the portal and have that opportunity to talk with other institutions. But the way they have it set up now, I just think it's just not a good suggestion. I mean, Ryan Day's already came out against it verbally, saying it's a disadvantage for those that are still in the college football playoffs. And I happen to agree wholeheartedly with Coach Day on that sentiment. And hopefully the logic of all those will come together and put a logical rule in place for the transfer portal, so everything is equally across the board in that regard. So that's one thing. The other thing is, we're going to look at the power rankings here in just a second for this week coming, and get over here for that. Let's see where we at here. That's not what I wanted. But the power rankings for this week are some interesting things that kind of popped up in that this week, as Michigan really tumbles in that regard. And I'm trying to find it here. If I can real quick, I will. But I just noticed that that's not what I wanted either. That they really fell quite extensively in the power poll. And I think it's one of those things that interesting to see that dynamic in that regard. But they really tumbled a lot. The teams that are on the move in it, and I'm going to pull it up here real quick. Um, let's see if I can get it situated here where it's legible and readable for that matter. Um, there we go. Um, you can see there right now where Oregon State and Ohio State are 1 and 2. How I have it. I've seen some where it's been Oregon 1, and I'm not so sure that's not correct either, because I do think they may be the best team in the Big Ten. Penn State there, Illinois, Indiana moved up to 5, Nebraska moved up to 6 as Michigan drops all the way to 7, followed by USC, Washington, Michigan State was another one that made a big jump. Minnesota at 11, Wisconsin, and Iowa. Iowa, with their loss to Iowa State, dropped as well in the power rankings. You've got Rutgers, Purdue, who's also 2-0. Big test this weekend, though, with USC on top. Northwestern, and then Tino Sinceri out at UCLA is in that final spot, having lost to Vegas this past week. So right now, as you can see there with everything, Indiana right in the middle or upper middle of the Big Ten in terms of power rankings are concerned. But we'll see what all occurs with that as well. Moving forward. But right now, Indiana, I think, sitting pretty well, as is Illinois. So we know after we get beyond this week, Indiana and Illinois will open Big Ten play next Saturday night on NBC's big game Saturday night at 7:30 there in Memorial Stadium. A sold-out crowd awaits, and the ticket office announced this week that vast majority of all Big Ten Conference games are all close to being sold out, with the only exception, Wisconsin, I believe, but there were few tickets available. So it looks like Indiana is on the cusp of selling out all Big Ten games at home this year, which is a phenomenal thing. I hope that we can, get a decent crowd tomorrow night in Memorial Stadium, but it's just very difficult to do that when you have high school football on Friday nights within the state of Indiana, a kick at 6:30, which makes it even more difficult for people that are coming from distance to get to Bloomington. And then add to the fact, right in Bloomington, you have Bloomington North versus Bloomington South. So it's a perfect storm against Indiana. So this is where the student body needs to step out and show out tomorrow evening and bring in a big crowd from the student body section, so that they're there in support of the boys on the field. And normally that usually occurs. Now, let's just keep them there more than a half. But at this point in time, Indiana with a Friday night game is just not the best setup for them, and it's out of their control. That's what happens when you let the TV world control everything and anything, and now they're paying the players as such. So there is no say-so by the institution itself or the program, as Ohio State has learned when it's come to Fox's big noon kickoff. They prefer not to play at noon in Columbus. They'd rather play a night game. And so it is what it is, but we'll see what all happens in that regard as it pertains to tomorrow night's crowd. I still think it'll be a sufficient enough crowd on tap Friday night. I don't know if you guys saw this, the Big Ten QB ratings that was put out by On3. And I found this to be, this is actually a USA Today article, I should say. I found it very interesting as we go through it here. Who are those top 10 quarterbacks in college football? They have Carson Beck, number 1, and had a pretty good showing against Notre Dame the other night in that win in Miami. They have him as the number 1 quarterback in the country. John Matter, the kid from Oklahoma, who is a phenomenal athlete as well as quarterback, as you can see some of his statistics right now, is a legit Heisman Trophy candidate, as pointed out here, and had a big win over Michigan now under his belt. and he had a darn good game that night, but he's completing almost 72% of his passes. And the unique thing there is Oklahoma hired Washington State's OC, Arbuckle, last offseason, which ultimately brought in the quarterback as well. And it's paying dividends for Oklahoma right now as well. Dante Moore from Oregon, this young man is a kid to keep an eye on because he has been phenomenal of late. As I've seen of him on the TV, completing almost 80% of his passes, very mobile, strong arm, and 6 touchdown passes and about 480 yards of passing yards per game. He is a unique and talented individual. He was at UCLA and transferred into Oregon last year, and all of that. Let's see here, Arizona Jace. Where we'll find out here in terms of that. I can understand your thought process there, Jace, with that aspect of size and arm strength of arm and such. Robinson, the kid from Baylor, he's a good-looking prospect as well. This one surprised me a little bit. Raiola from Nebraska, but you got to say, with Dana Holgerson, now the OC there, he has really made an impact on the young man. He's second in the Big Ten with 607 yards, 6 touchdowns through the first weeks. And he's got a test coming up here in a couple weeks at Michigan. Michigan comes to Lincoln, which will be another big-time game in the conference. But that one surprised me a little bit. Of course, last year, Indiana pretty much controlled him, made him make bad decisions, and made a lot of mistakes. Now, his big progress offensively, threw for over 360 yards a week ago against Akron. So it's more based upon what people have seen and what they're projecting out there. But that one surprised me a little bit. This kid from Iowa State is the tough as nails quarterback. He makes a lot of plays. He's headsy. He does a lot of the good things. I don't necessarily know that he's a top 10 caliber quarterback in the country. That one I do also question. Pavia at Vanderbilt, of course, there's a lot of tout on that young man at Vanderbilt. He's the one that got the extra year of eligibility. His brothers also happen to be in jail for their antics after the game at Vanderbilt. One actually pushed a police officer, which is a no-no. But he is a remarkable kid in terms of his ability on the field, and he makes plays. He's kind of the Johnny Manziel of Vanderbilt now. But that one I can understand. He's had some great games there. This kid from Tennessee, he's another transfer. And he basically was traded from UCLA to Tennessee for the Nico transferring out there. But this kid was at Appy State last year, has come into Tennessee and done quite well thus far in that regard. Luke Altemeyer will get a chance to see this young man next week. I'm not so sure he's not higher in my mind. I think he's better than some of those previously listed in that regard. And then the final one is a freshman quarterback at Ohio State, Sayin, who had a decent game against Texas week 1. And yes, he put up 300 yards a week ago against Grambling State. Now, what I find interesting in all this is that not once was Mr. Mendoza mentioned in any of those top 10 quarterbacks. I'm not saying, he should be, shouldn't be, but I do think he may be better than some of those that were listed in that category, especially with all the hype surrounding him prior to him coming to Indiana. Mel Kiper's endorsement of him being a first-round draft pick and things of that nature. And, he's kind of had some ho-hum games first 2 weeks, but some of those other guys that were mentioned in that top 10 list, again, I'm not quite sure that they are in that regard. I do think he's better than the kid at Iowa State. I do think he's better than the kid at Ohio State, and for just being an upperclassman alone in that regard. So, but we'll see. I mean, the proof comes on the playing field and not in one's conversations and such. So we'll see what all happens on that end. Also, with everything this week, we're going to get to the Indiana State scouting report here. That's right, Robert. Cream always rises to the top. That is correct. We're going to get to this Indiana State team, and in this game that's coming up, there's a couple things that I think Indiana really has to do, because this is the last test. This is the last dance prior to jumping into Big Ten play, with Indiana entering that 3-game gauntlet that I've said all year will have a defining footprint on what Indiana will do in the Big Ten. And you play Illinois, Iowa, and Oregon in that 3-game stretch. And that was really going to tell us a lot about this Indiana football team heading into not only the Big Ten season of play, but going into that final 6 games of the year, because once they come out of Oregon, they're in the backstretch of the conference and the season for that matter. So this is a game that Indiana has got to be able to take some things and improve upon. Eliminate the chunk yardage plays that the defense has given up over the last 2 weeks. Alignments with the safeties, get that down and taken care of with all the misalignments that they've seen through the first 2 weeks. These are the things that ultimately can come back and haunt you if you do not correct, because some of the things that have plagued them in the first 2 weeks with alignment and big plays and such, the better teams will make you pay. And those ones usually ends up as touchdowns. Indiana has been fortunate, other than the 2 big runs against Old Dominion, that some of the big plays against Kennesaw State last week, Indiana was able to get them right off schedule the very next play. So against Indiana State, an offense that does throw, spread you out, does do some tempo stuff, they're going to have to make sure that they take care of themselves, but also keep Indiana State in check on that side of the ball throughout the entire game as we head into this week in that regard. But before we do that, just a couple things here. One of them, we're going to hear from Academy Sports and then BetMGM.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets. You ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors? Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. 1. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code ON3. 2. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. 3. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code ON3 when you sign up. Make this college football season 1 for the history books. Make it legendary. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3 and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPNBY or text HOPNY 467369, New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, Arizona, 1-800-327-5050, Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF, Iowa, 1-800-981-0023, Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only. Subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days. In partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel.
Thank you to Academy and also BetMGM, proud affiliates of the Hoosier.com as well as On3. And we thank them for their support of the Hoosier.com. And remember, you can still get that $1 first month for the Hoosier.com, and then 50% for the rest of the year. You get On3, you get Athlon, great coverage by all. The Hoosier.com with some of the articles that are put out daily there. You get a lot of info. So get over there today and take care of that. But let's get into this with Indiana State tonight. And they come into this game 2-0, having beat McKendree and Eastern Illinois for their first 2 wins at home. So this will be their first road trip of the year in that respect. So just a couple things with them, and we're going to talk a little bit about this, but let's go over to the, whoops, not that one. I didn't want that one. Let's go over to this first and look at their games of where they're at as a unit. As you can see what they have done thus far, almost 40 points a game. Offensively, averaging about 206 yards a game on the ground, only giving up 113 defensively. New coordinators this year at Indiana State. On defense, David Ellison, who is a familiar name in Indiana, a local product, and worked some at Indiana back in the day, and was at Ball State for a number of years, now at Indiana State. But you can see they're averaging about 450 yards, giving up only 338 yards on the year. And their third down conversions, however, have not been great at all. I mean, they're 28%. And defensively pretty respectable, but on offense, that's not very good at all. 6-21. So you can see there, if you can get them off schedule and get them in 3rd and long, high probability you're going to come off the field with a 3-and-out probability. When you get in the red zone with them, they're about 60% scoring touchdowns, 9-10 getting points. So those are not bad when you talk about things of that nature. And then let's look over here at the individual aspect. Let's start with passing first. Elijah Owens is their quarterback, kid out of Jacksonville, Illinois. Redshirt sophomore, 6'2", 225. And his Eastern Illinois game, you can see, only threw for 67 yards, but week 1 threw for 250. Not sure why there was a drop there in terms of production. That may have been because maybe they were running the ball very well, but you can see he does have the ability to rush it in 2 games, 62 and 50 on the year. He's been their primary guy at quarterback. And then when you look at rushing the ball, they've got this kid here. Lawrence is his name. He's out of Kokomo, Indiana. Redshirt junior, 5'9", 200 pounds. He's a hard runner. Now, he had 133 against McKendree, but then only had 10 yards. I don't know if he got hurt or whatever in week 2, but again, there's a pretty significant drop-off there, but he's been their leading rusher, surprisingly. And then, of course, we just talked about Elijah. He's their second leading rusher on the year. And then this young man has thrown some nice numbers up, big numbers. He's also a quarterback, and he's kind of their running QB. As you can see, he played in that second game more so than Owens. I have not heard the status of Owens, their quarterback, but this young man is from Colorado. I think he's a transfer, if I'm not mistaken, junior there, but he had 111 yards in passing, followed almost by 70, 80 yards on the ground. So interesting dynamic there in terms of who Indiana State will line up with at quarterback. And then because this kid, the Plez kid, is also their leading receiver, which is ironic on the year. And then let's see, this young man is Rashid Rochelle. Another Illinois product, as you can see, his games where he's gotten, pretty good numbers there, and he's also one of their returners. So offensively, you can see some difference in consistency, I would say, in their take from an offensive productivity aspect of things. But then on defense, they're led by this young man, Camille Clark, he's a DB. And I'm kind of mixed on DBs being your leading tackler, because that means you're getting a lot of guys to that second level as such. And then right after him is their linebacker, McAllister, sophomore out of St. Louis. So he's a pretty good player. He moves around a lot. Number 45, you'll see him on video, as does this young man, Samson kid. He's an Indiana product out of Northview High School, 6'2", 225. He's their third leading tackler on the year from that perspective. And I can't see, trying to see who may be their sack leader. I think it's this young man, followed by some others. Wilson out of Wisconsin. D lineman, 6'3", 275. Big, strong kid. Got 2 on the year, and there's a couple others that have, 1.5 and things of that nature. But a defense that has a new coordinator, played pretty decently the first 2 weeks of the year in that respect, and, so forth and so on. So that's Indiana State's look at their stats on offense. And again, just a reminder, some of the games that are happening this week. You got USC Purdue kicking off at noon, Youngstown State at Michigan State, the Ohio Bobcats, who just upset West Virginia. I guess you could say it's an upset. They're at Ohio State. Western Michigan, another MAC opponent this week, is at Illinois, 7 o'clock kick. And then UMass is at Iowa, and Minnesota's out at California. So some big prominent games there in terms of some of the things that, we've seen in the past. But, the thing of it is that this week, as all weeks coming into it, being that it's the final non-conference schedule for most of the teams, or virtually all the Big Ten teams, and it's that last week of getting things corrected, I's dotted, T's crossed, so that you coming into week 4 playing your best football. Indiana, as we've talked about, has had, they've had their own little struggles here and there through the first 2 weeks. I wouldn't say that every game has been very clean. It has had its instances of sloppy play. We talked about the chunk yardage, the red zone deficiencies that Indiana faced week 1. Seems to have rectified it week 2. We'll see if that is a continuing trend, which it needs to be. Alignment and the safeties and things of that nature getting in position before the ball is snapped. And then continuing to be a defense that plays with reckless abandon, that fast, physical, relentless mentality that Coach Sig likes to preach. This is a team and a defense that usually is dictating their will to an opposing offense by using smart tactics and blitzes and schemes to really get after an offense. They did not quite do that against Old Dominion for the most part there when they had the big chunk plays, and they were much better against Kennesaw State. But again, the one recurring theme has been the big chunk plays that they've given up. And it's not a characteristic that you would say is tied to an Indiana defense based upon last year's productivity. So this week against Indiana State, heading into this game, you're going to see that this is going to be some things that Indiana is going to have to do consistently to have a chance to get themselves ready to take on a very powerful Illinois team in another week. But we don't worry about that now. You play the game that's in front of you, and you sure as heck don't worry about what's up behind them, because that's how you get beat. And Indiana's focus and attention has to be on Indiana State. When I looked at this game, and I'm going to jump into the win, what I think it's going to take for this ball game. Here's my game day goals for offense and defense. Left column being the offensive goals, the right column being defense. I think Indiana can put 50 on these guys. I really do. I think they have an offense that can really score a lot of points, and I think Indiana State has not seen a team like Indiana thus far in their first 2 weeks. Offense, they've been busting for 300 yards, so there's no indication that they cannot attain 275 or more or 250 or more in the pass game. Looking at the flip side of this, Indiana State, I think you got to hold them to what your defense has shown statistically for the first 2 weeks as averages. Indiana's given up a total of 12 points on average. They can hold this Sycamore rushing attack to under 120 yards, and throwing the balls under 150 or 140 yards of passing, and then 280 for total defense and 550 for total offense. I say that, and the lopsidedness in this is coming from really one perspective, is that I don't think Indiana State athletically can match Indiana. There's just too much depth that Indiana has over a team like Indiana State, number one. So in that regard, I just think it's a mismatch on paper. Now, that means absolutely nothing. That's a voice that you're hearing over the internet of making a prediction of where this game could be. But I do think that Indiana has too much power and too much athleticism for a team like Indiana State. And it's not Kennesaw State that is so aptly mislabeled at the bottom. As you can see, it's been a long week in that regard. When you think about Indiana State, the one thing that the defense is going to have to do is, especially if the other kid is in at quarterback for Owens, and Owens is not able to play, but even if Owens is, they're very athletic, and they will run the quarterback and design runs. Indiana had trouble against that against Old Dominion, so you can bet that Indiana State is going to run the plays that Indiana had trouble with Old Dominion on. And so you're going to see quite quickly, did Indiana address the problem? And are they going to make sure that they account for the quarterback and the quarterback run game? But Indiana State will run the quarterback. There's no question about that aspect of things. And you can rest assured that that is going to be something that Indiana is going to be tested on, and tested on quickly in that respect comes tomorrow evening, because the one thing there is that with Owens, or if the other young man is in, their offense being a spread fastball type of offense is going to be one of those type of games where Indiana is going to have to take care of the quarterback in that regard. When you get into the special or third down percentages, I think Indiana should be good if they're consistent and efficient on first and second down. And I do think Indiana can hold Indiana State to 30% or less. I think that's proven by statistics. I think that's proven by both offense and defense when you look at it black and white. Again, special teams spark plays. I mean, these are the ones, blocking a kick, setting up a big kickoff return, a big punt return, when what Brady has done in the 2 weeks that he's had the opportunity to return. So that needs to be a consistent factor moving forward, because I do think Indiana has a hand up in that category heading in not only to this game, but into the Big Ten slate. Red zone touchdowns, I think Indiana needs to be around 75% or greater, and points 85% or greater there. And then continue with the turnovers, which their defense has been very good at thus far, getting that three a game marker that they've been able to do the first 2 weeks, and essentially being able to gain points off of turnovers I think Indiana's averaged, I think, 12 points a game off of turnovers. And that was one category a year ago that was very, very significant in Indiana's total season, was that when they got turnovers, they were very efficient on making a team pay with points. And they got to continue to do that heading into this week as well. But I do think in that respect, that's where Indiana can be a difference maker when it comes to this type of ball game. And Indiana has a chance to do that with Indiana State. All right, let's head on over to the video room tonight and talk a little bit about this Indiana State team. I've got their defense structure lined up here. They're based in a 4-3 defense, and they do like to get the eighth man into the box, and that's usually the free safety here. This is just a basic wide set that Indiana has employed, with this being the tight end there, and X and Z and X there. But Indiana State will show what I call a cover 4 to the field and cover 2 into the boundary. But how they play that with this free safety, if he's a run support, basically this guy's manned up. So, and this defender here, what we call the S defender, the sandbacker defender, any type of wide set, you'll see him split the difference from these two. Now, Indiana can do some things to exploit this by quick motioning a guy like the tailback and throwing quick screens out here and just throwing like a bubble screen concept, because they can get a hat on a hat and make a safety try to take it down. But so that's one area of how you'll see Indiana State aligned. And then again, you'll see them align in situations in down yardage situations. You will also see them line up in this type of situation, but they'll play what we call cover 1 or man free in passing down situations. And then they'll do some stunts up front, trying to bring guys, maybe bringing a guy like this guy and bringing him there and trying to twist a guy there and such. So very, a very twist happy team in third down and distance situations, but nothing that Indiana hasn't seen. So the RPO game, I think, can be a big factor tomorrow night as well. And then they do have, in some of their games, they have shown the tendency to play this, I call it a wide bear front, and where they're going to bring guys, some depth guys, and play covers, 11 in behind it. So, and that is, yeah, I agree. I gotta be a little bit more realistic in my goals, but I agree with 100% red zone points. But this is the type of defense you'll see in a pressure situation down and distance wise. When you talk about Indiana State offensively and what they run, they do a lot of the same formations that you've seen Indiana run, spreading you out, sideline to sideline, trying to stretch you vertically. Nothing that Indiana hasn't seen, or any special plays or formations that Indiana hasn't seen already. So Indiana should be well-versed in that regard when it comes to what to expect from Indiana State. This is their first game of the year against McKendree, who I believe is like NAIA school. And you can kind of see it here structurally, what you're going to see. Kind of a 4 down, 2 linebackers in the box, because this guy will split the difference out here because of his responsibilities. So he's going to split that difference up front. And then you get this kind of a bull effect on your coverage. Looks like a too high. That's what it is. And they're probably going to play quarters. So in my old days of breaking down film, I'd call this 24, because that signals the quarterback you've always got too high. And that's his first identifier when he comes to the line of scrimmage. And then as it comes to how do they throw RPOs, they'll base it on some of these guys in terms of where they're at, or maybe a guy into the boundary where he's at, and play ball from there. But nothing unusual there when it comes to this aspect of things. McKendree had, like I said, NAIA team that was able to run the ball, relative effectively against Indiana State. I wouldn't say they overly dominate them. Here's this look where Indiana State's kind of adopting what used to be, or what Tom Allen ran, was what we called a 4-2 and 5 defense, because of how this looks. You got 6 guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 secondary guys, and how they like to do this is they like to try to take this out here and eliminate him in terms of as a coverage player, and really play the game between this guy and that way. So that's how you'll see them line up in some of these respects to this front and what they like to do. But you can see them dropping at the top, but they're still playing a soft 2 man almost down here to the boundary, or to us near side. And this is where the quarterback has to be careful in terms of how they're rotating. But this ultimately was a good throw and catch, and getting a nice play there on first down and such. So here's some of Indiana State as well. Kind of a nice little drop that right in there, didn't he? On a blitz situation. So they were able to get some chunk plays against McKendree a couple weeks ago. And they did a good job of that. Again, you can see them moving around offensively. Again, doing some of that. Okay, that's the same play, knucklehead. And we'll jump back to the offense or defensive side of the ball here. Again, 4-man front, playing that kind of a soft 3 type of look, because what they're doing here, they're showing this 2 shell. Again, you get this, but at the snap of the ball, this guy's going to run to a third. This guy here, is going to sink down, and these guys should be bailing or playing more of a man concept on those receivers and such. And then you see how their defensive backers like to be aggressive. Another thing that I liked out of this, they do some play action, bootlegs and nakeds, and nice job by their tight end there running a guy over. You like to see that. And this is kind of just some clips that kind of showed of this game. Here's McKendree bringing a stunt and throwing a pick. These are the things, like I said, Indiana should be well-versed in trying to take the ball away from Indiana State, because their quarterbacks have made mistakes in their throws. This is that one diagram I showed you with a kind of a bare front, 2 backers up on the line of scrimmage, and then you got man. He's kind of free. He's matching up with the tight end. He's got him. And then, of course, you see the guys on the outside manning up. And then inside here, you've got kind of a blitz look. So the quarterback's got to know right now he's going to have man free. 3rd and 4, he's got to know what he's going to do with the ball. They run something like a fold ISO here and split them. Boom. So that was a nice run there by McKendree on 3rd and 4. 1st and 10, again, you can see that hard shell coverage at the top. Playing that cover 4 down here at the bottom. And when I'm saying the bottom, I'm talking down here. Cover 4. So you got quarters. He's a flat player. At the top, you're seeing a guy playing a hard 2, and he's going to stay at home. Or if he reads run, they give him the freedom to sink down into the box. So again, if you're going to run RPOs and stuff, where you got to, he's got to know what he's doing and where he's going with the football. They come right back with that fold ISO, and they bounce it this time. And again, big gashing run. So Indiana State is a, same team that can also give up some big hits. Here again is kind of the red zone look. Nothing changes for them defensively. Still that cover 4 look here. Good run look there, 6-man box. You got, some good runs, quarterback reads and things like that as well. And for a team that was one kind of an NAI program, they blocked them pretty good. Here's just inside zone concepts. And he gets to the outside, another big run. They ultimately have to settle for a field goal here. Now you're inside the 10, so you're going to get a lot more structurally thrown at you. They're gonna, in that odd looking front where they've got backers coming off the edge, you're going to probably get these guys pinching gaps. You got your man up here at the top. This guy's kind of a free rover type. Here's your true one-on-one is down here at the bottom. That's your one-on-one. So that's either EJ or potentially Elijah Surratt down there in the bottom that you can, get some one-on-one looks to. And this is where Indiana likes to run that kind of a RPO game to try to get this guy drawn up and then boom, throw that slant in behind him here. But you just got to be careful in that because you got an underbacker here underneath and you got to make sure that your eyes hold that cat, or otherwise, if you look him down, it's going to be a pick the other way. Again, just kind of a play outside. Let's go. That's right. Let's go. As you can see that some of these plays are, again, PATs and field goals. Let's get one more series in here, offensively speaking. Again, Indiana State, good running back. That's that Lawrence kid from Kokomo. And like I said, we don't know if his injuries or if he's still injured or not or what happened, but you can see Indiana State effectively moved the ball. Of course, they're missing a hold by the right guard there. Look at that. Holy crap. Molested him. But he is a strong runner, runs hard. I don't think he has a lot of what I would say blazing speed. He's just one of those guys that you can run that runs hard against you, and you got to make sure you fit him up because he's a guy that can break tackles, as shown right there. Like I said, this is where you got to be cautious of the quarterback being able to run the football. He really missed a throw here. I mean, he's got his tailback out here. Nobody covered him. Who's got that guy? So he missed that. Now the rush, because of Indiana State getting in the backfield there, McKendry getting in the backfield there really messed things up, but he could have dumped it to the back for a big play. This is what happens. This is exactly what happens when you don't get aligned. This guy's supposed to be out here splitting the difference. This guy should be over the top. Well, they blow coverage, and number 4 goes right down the hash for a touchdown. I mean, that's why getting aligned properly at the snap of the ball is critical, because this is all based upon alignment, and they're not aligned correctly. But I have no idea what this cat's doing with his eyes in the backfield. He should be backing up, getting depth with this guy, and he gets him go right by him for a touchdown. And you wonder why coaches like me let our livelihoods be determined by 18 to 20 or 23-year-olds. Now, here's the play that they ran week 1. This is a great play. And how this is lined up is that this is a tackle out here. So he is not even eligible, but he's a good decoy because they have to align to it. This guy right here is the tight end. So this is a great trick play. He's going to skirt back and act like he's getting some type of pass out here. He's going to run a corner route. He's going to run a wide hitch, and this tight end's just going to take off right down the field. And you can look at it right now. There is no nobody in that area at all when it comes to this. And they throw it here, but it's not a great throw. The tight end falls down. I mean, that's a touchdown. Don't fall down, young man. But you got to be ready for that stuff by Indiana coming into this game, because they have nothing to lose when it comes to that type of stuff. Again, red zone type of stuff is, again, they're bringing what I call a saw blitz. This is a backer. He's a backer. These guys are just going to come and blitz off the edge, and you're going to see these guys move to the gap inside of them to really clog the middle up with that. And they're playing kind of a man free here because this guy has him. He's got that guy. He's got him. And then these guys on the outside are all manned up. So again, if you're going to throw any RPO game, what is it you're going to throw? Running the ball here doesn't look great, although they do run it and get away with it. Reality tells you they shouldn't, because of the number of gaps that are occupied. And they don't even block one guy. The tackle and the tight end blow it down here at the bottom. Guy just runs right by him. Like, where are you going, dude? You should be making the play in the backfield. So again, I mean, these are the type of things that you got to have a plan for. Same thing down here, nothing different. They got, a lot of bodies up in that same look. Their backers are all tight in here. McKendry's in a double tight set. Whoop. Oh my God, he broke his ankles. Holy smokes. What a move. Wow. And as you can see there, I had those moves once back when, right? When I was about 100 pounds lighter. But Indiana State, although they're 2-0 and you respect what they've done thus far leading up to this ball game Friday night, you can see where I come from the standpoint. Indiana has a much better football team on all fronts, physical, speed, you name it. They should have a dominating factor against this ball club tomorrow night in Memorial Stadium. But they got to address all of the things that they've been misaligned, the chunk plays, the offense being more consistent in the red zone. They started that last week. They got to continue it this week. You still got to make sure you're targeting Surratt and Williams and Cooper. You got 3 valuable players there. You got to see what depth you have in behind them as well as you get going here, especially up in the offensive line too. And the more that you can get yourself in this game and solidifying it as early as possible, you can start moving in some of the backup players like Alberto to give him more quality snaps heading into week 4 of the games, that he's got the quality reps that he needs in case he has to be called upon in a game. And this is the final opportunity to do that before heading into that Big Ten gauntlet of Illinois, Iowa, and Oregon. So those are all the things that I think are tomorrow night are important. I'd be interested to hear what your guys' thoughts are. By all means, drop a comment on YouTube or hit me up on Twitter on what you may think the score is going to be, or what are some things that you think Indiana is going to have to do against Indiana State to come out with a win tomorrow night, as well as wrapping up the non-con schedule heading into Illinois. I look at all your guys' comments. Anything that you have a question on, I can also try to answer. But give me your feeling for this ball game tomorrow night, because right now where I'm setting and looking at it objectively, not as a fan, as a former coach, and how I evaluate tape, Indiana by far is a better team than Indiana State is in all phases of the game. And I do think this is a game that Indiana can win like 56-10, in all honesty. And I do think that requires, the Hembys and Black and Beebes to have a huge night, Mendoza to have a huge night, and a defense that comes prepared to play fast, physical, and relentless from start to end tomorrow night in Memorial Stadium. Well, I hope that you guys get down to Bloomington tomorrow night. If not, remember you can watch the game at 6:30 kickoff on BTN. As for myself, I will not be able to be a part of tomorrow evening's festivities, but I will be with you all in spirit, objectively observing from afar. But until Monday night, well, I'll have a recap of this Indiana State game as we set the stage for the Big Ten coming next week. Remember to follow me on X at Coach Griff 55 or Hoosier Tailgate, and you can find all your information there week in, week out. Get over to thehoosier.com, pick up that subscription for $1 and 50% off for the rest of the year. And for now, I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith. You've been watching the Hoosier Football Tailgate here on thehoosier.com. We will see you Monday night to recap the Indiana versus Indiana State ball game tomorrow night, 6:30 at Memorial Stadium. Till then, be safe, and we will see you Monday.